Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.
Some black males have a hard time comprehending when you present facts to them, and instead of them listening to what you have to say, they get in their feelings. Now, last night I premiered a video where I talked about how Brazilian feminist Stephanie Ribiero had exposed the passport bros and Austin Holloman in Brazil. And some individuals took to the comments section to tell me that I was supporting feminism when that is not the case at all. No, in that video I was stating how Brazilian feminist Stephanie Ribiero was being used by God in a mysterious fashion to actually protect Austin Holloman from himself. Now, your Austin Holloman is one of these passport bros who traveled and moved over to Brazil, and as he was in Brazil, he was out here making a lot of vlogs where he was making thirsty comments about Brazilian women, and he was making all sorts of statements like Brazilian women are easy. Now, these statements, in addition to his extremely thirsty behavior, had made him a target that even Ray Charles or Matt Murdock would not miss. And what happened was that Brazilian feminist Stephanie Ribiero saw his behavior and then went out and alerted everyone from the Brazilian social media to the Brazilian mainstream media. And as they went out here and made hit pieces regarding Austin Holloman and his behavior, he was forced to leave the country. And many people want to sit there and say, oh, I'm supporting Stephanie Ribiero. No, I understand how God can work in a mysterious way to save a young man's life when he does not know what he is doing. Because the Most High looks out for those who are ignorant of their behavior, and sometimes he works in a mysterious fashion by using your own alleged enemies to go out here and participate in behavior that winds up benefiting you. And when I look at Austin Holloman's behavior, he was a guy who was just so caught up in his feelings about Brazilian women that he was not thinking about more important things like his health, his safety, or his freedom. And because he was so caught up in his feelings about Brazilian women and how much more attractive they are than black American women, Austin Holloman was moving real sloppy on the streets of Brazil. Austin Holloman was basically running out here with expensive cameras, running out here with expensive clothes, showing out on the streets of Brazil as he was out here trying to so-called knack these Brazilian women, and he really did not see the danger he was in, and again could not see that he was making himself into a target that Ray Charles or Matt Murdock could not miss in a crowd of people, because with the thirsty way he was acting, he was basically letting every local know that he was a guy with a lot of money, but not a lot of common sense. And that's a guy that predators would easily look to take advantage of if he continued to stay in Brazil. And it would have been, and sadly, if Austin Holloman had stayed in Brazil, we wouldn't be talking about him running out of the country. No, we would be talking about how he was going to get carried out of the country in a body bag, the same way Bakari Henderson had to be carried out of Greece because he didn't know how to move in that country. And Austin Holloman, again, didn't know how to move in Brazil, and this is why he got on the radar of Stephanie Ribiero, because he was moving real sloppy. And because he was moving real sloppy, Stephanie Ribiero was able to hear about what he was doing, and she was able to go out here and alert the authorities such as law enforcement and she was also able to alert the mainstream media. And as she alerted these organizations, this is what led to the entire narrative of the Passport Bros being flipped into something negative. And many people want to say, oh, you're siding with the feminists. No, I don't side with the feminists, but I can see the clumsy behavior of Austin Holloman and how it was detrimental to black men, not only in Brazil, but also across the globe, because Austin Holloman's behavior affected the entire collective of black men. And as he was moving sloppy in Brazil, he changed the narrative from black men being travelers to black men turning into the face of sexual predation. And that narrative was quickly changed because he was out here acting real sloppy, and he was providing many of these media organizations the evidence that they need to turn an innocent, thirsty young black man's behavior into the picture of sexual predation. Because that's what those media outlets did with Austin Holloman's behavior. They turned him from a tourist to a terror, and they made him the face of sexual predation. And that's what white supremacist media does. They go out here and turn a black man into the face of sexual predation, the same way the Me Too movement tried to turn Bill Cosby and many other black male performers into the face of sexual predation. Because what Austin Holloman didn't understand is that Brazil is controlled by white supremacy, like many other countries on the globe. And this is why when you're traveling, you don't move all sloppy like this, because when you're a black man, they want to easily change the narrative from you being a traveler to a terror. And they will do this intentionally because all across the globe, the heterosexual black man is seen as a threat by everyone in the world. And this is why many black travelers, they know to move with a low profile. They know how to not make a lot of noise because they know that they are being watched. And because they know they're being watched, they know they've got to watch how they move, because in these countries, you are not only being watched by the government, you are also being watched by many of the local predators who see you as an easy target. And they see you as an easy target because as a black man, they know that you are in a second-class status. And as you're having a second-class status, they know that if a crime happens to you, you're gonna have a hard time getting any sort of justice. This, sadly, is what happened to Shanquella Robinson when she went to Mexico. Her friends basically plotted her murder, and they plotted her murder knowing that the Mexican authorities were not going to do a single thing about her death and her possible murder, because they knew, okay, if you're a black person, you're a second-class citizen, and if something happens to you, the government isn't going to actively go out here and fight for you. I mean, the same thing happened to Brittany Griner when she traveled, and if it wasn't an election year, she possibly would be in that Russian prison today. But because it was an election year, she got lucky. And again, many black males, again, they don't really think about the danger that they're in, because many black males are so caught up in their feelings about black women that they're not thinking about more important things, such as their health, their safety, or their freedom. And whenever you try to talk to them in an objective perspective, they immediately get emotional, like one of the commenters did, thinking, oh, I'm supporting feminism. No, I can see where Austin Holloman was blessed by God working through Stephanie Ribiero to go out here and alert these authorities, because in the worst case scenario, Austin Holloman could have been moving sloppy like he did for an extended period of time, and he could have easily been set up for a robbery by one of these females he was chasing, because some of these females in these countries where Brazil, where it's really poor, they'll definitely work with a couple of guys to lure you in, and then when they lure you in, they set you up for a robbery, and then you might possibly wind up losing your life, and they may not find you because, again, with these countries being white supremacist, the American consulate won't know you even exist, and you're just gone and missing for years. And again, this could have been the fate for Austin Holloman, but your Austin Holloman and many of these passport bros, they don't, again, see the danger that they're in because they're so caught up in their feelings about black women and much of the rhetoric they've heard on the gender war that they're not thinking about, again, their health, safety, or their freedom. They're not understanding that you have a target on your back, and what you did was just widen the gyre by going out here and acting a fool in a country because you're caught up in all of this gender war rhetoric that you're not thinking about more important things. This is the problem with many black males. Whenever you try to talk about anything related to passports, they get caught up in their feelings, and as they get caught up in their feelings and you try to talk to them and try to reason with them, there's no reasoning with them because they're all emotion. And some of these guys, they want to come out here with the argument, oh, what about all the white guys participating in sex tourism? Well, basically, you allowed those white guys to be able to get that pass because when Austin Holloman acted a fool, he made black men the face of sexual predation in Brazil, taking the heat off all of those white guys. And again, that argument of white people do it too doesn't really function here because, again, a white man in a system of white supremacy has institutions to protect him, but there's nobody to protect your black ass if something happens to you in this country. This is something many of the passport bros don't really understand. They don't really understand that when you are in these countries, you are on your own. And most people there, they aren't looking out to see you as an ally. No, they have been listening and imbibing a lot of white supremacist, anti-black narratives, and they see the black heterosexual man as a predator. And the whole thing is that many black males, while they listen to these guys online talking about, oh, how much they love us, well, I have to ask a critical question. How do they love you when they all support white supremacy? I mean, those black Brazilians, they will fall right in line with white supremacy when it comes down to a black heterosexual American man, and they will start parroting the same anti-black man narratives that you hear in America, because that's what happened with Stephanie Ribiero. She started promoting the same anti-black man narratives as related to a black American man in Brazil, and turned a black man into the face of sexual predation. And that's what many of these black males don't really understand. They don't understand that even if you go to another country, you are still seen as an enemy and you are behind enemy lines. But even with you being behind enemy lines, it's a miracle that Austin Holloman got out of that country alive. And again, God can work in a mysterious way. He can even use a Brazilian feminist to save the life of a black American man who is ignorant of the subtle politics transpiring around him and ignorant of the world that's around him. He can use that Brazilian feminist to save that black man's life, because Austin Holloman wouldn't, if he had stayed in that country, he would not have lasted much longer, because either he would have been arrested by the authorities or he would have wound up being set up for a robbery by many of those women he was chasing. And in a worst case scenario, he possibly either would have wound up being carried out in a body bag or being locked up in a prison with no real support. Again, a 23-year-old man would have possibly lost all of his life, and he would have lost everything there. But many black people, they want to say, oh, you're siding with a feminist. No, I can see how a black boy was blessed with a little bit more time in this world, and I can see where a young man wound up with his life basically where he's still allowed to live because he wasn't aware of the dangers that he was in, and he wasn't aware of any of his behavior. No, all he was thinking was, I'm going to go get with these so-called better women, not understanding that he was in a really bad situation, a bad situation that he has gone to move on to Thailand. And again, his behavior is just out of control. And again, many black folks don't understand how this impacts black men as a collective, because he has basically destroyed the entire narrative as related to black men as a collective in Brazil, because they flipped the game because he was all thirsty and he was off code. And because he was thirsty and off code, now you have black men who have to think twice when they're out here, because most people now are going to be thinking about black men as the face of sexual predation. And again, all because many black males, they just don't understand how to be able to move in other countries, and again, don't understand how to navigate life. They're going out here doing dumb things. And when I look at, again, the comments I was getting, it shows that some people just don't know how to think critically, because again, when I was talking about this Brazilian feminist, it was in the context of God blessing this young man and protecting his life, because this man could have, again, easily been the next Bakari Henderson, because he just was out here green, inexperienced, caught up in his feelings, and again, not understanding how the world worked. And he didn't understand how precious his life was, but God understood how precious his life was and protected him from himself. And that's the point that I was trying to make about this Brazilian feminist, how she was being used by God to protect this young man and hope and protect him from himself. But the whole thing is, black men, again, we have a problem in our community in that some of us don't really think critically. We go out here and feel and act on emotion, and that's where the passport bros hurt the collective of black men, because a lot of them are acting on their feelings, getting in their feelings, and making the image of black men look bad globally. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. Now, if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint in paperback and Kindle format, you can head over to Amazon.com and get all of my books there. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback and e-readers everywhere at online booksellers today.